Hello, good morning, everyone. First of all, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Andi Asrifan, and I'm a lecturer of Universitas Muhammadiyah Sidrapan. That's a kind of the private university in South Sulawesi, Indonesia. Today, I'm here to talk about the use of literature in language teaching. The purpose of this presentation are what is literature itself, what is literary language, do you think literary work are good resources for language teaching? Why and why not? What are approaches of the study of literature in language classroom? And the last is what are the criteria for selecting literary material to teach in the classroom? So my talk or my presentation today is divided into five parts as I mentioned just now. Let me first start with just some general information about literature itself. Uh, in introductory, according to Hirsch, 1978, literature include any text which words to be taught to students. That's put in page 34. And in the first part here, what is literature? So literature is composed of literary work in language, which in language by which community define themselves, self defining activity. Those literary work are defined as artistic and artistic. Uh, what is literary language? So here there are some definition of literary language. Literary language means that there are distinctive feature in literary texts because of the language used in these texts. Therefore, it is generally demanded to explain an argument in the literary text. The study of literature involves an approach to text as cultural artifact. Use of literature as a linguistic resource. The study literature also include meta language. In here, a cover about the language, image, and text, and also critical concept knowledge of the conversion. So, using literary text as a source for language teaching, uh, three major benefits here. The first is a specific communicative goal in area resources for integrating the four skill reading, listening, writing, and speaking, and also cross cultural awareness. So through literature, we can understand the culture from other part, other side, and other country. For example, in my country, in Indonesia, uh, the Legend of Lake Toba. That's the folk tale. The Legend of Lake Toba. That's the famous folk tale of our folklore in Indonesia. Uh, so the next question coming to the researchers is why do we use literature text in the language classroom? Based on some researchers, here I put a definition from the Laser 1993. The benefits of using literary text in the language classroom are listed as follow. We can motivate the student. So, in fact, there are many students feel lazy and also something bored in learning English, especially in Indonesia. There are just a little, just a few teacher want to try to demonstrate uh, uh, material to increase the student motivation and interest in learning English. And then I think literary text is authentic material and educational value and also syllabi. And in other hand, a cultural value. So through literature, the student or the learner will learn about the cultural value and also the stimulus for language acquisition. That's fun, I think, and highly value or high status, and also language awareness. And on the other hand, is motivating to talk about the opinions. That's exactly, I think. That's right. So sometimes in my classroom, uh, uh, I sometimes over and serve the material based on the literature, like watching a movie, singing a song. Although they are in the adult learner, but they think uh, they they can motivate themselves and fun also, and then they can feel what the story or the song talk about. uh, like my favorite song, that's a kind of literature also. Most of my student in my class, in my class love Celine Dion. My heart will go on. that's that's their favorite song. Every night in my dream, I see you, I feel you. That is how I know you. Go on. That's their favorite song. Most of our students love it. So this is the sample objective for reading literature. Based on Campbell 2007, the objective are listed as follow. A student will develop a variety of reading strategy. That's sure, exactly. They will identify the literary term and study how this term contribute to their writing skill, and they will develop skill to analyze literary text. I will show you how to the procedure of using a kind of literature in the classroom. That is my based on my experience, and then some or researches I put, and then I conclude, and then also apply to my classroom. So in other hand, the student will develop discussion class or discussion scale, and then a student will discover connecting with the literature they read, text to self, text to text, and text to word. That's the discover connection. Text to self, text to text, text to word. And then a student will understand the role of literature, which provide insight into the culture of target language. For instance, a play which allow language learner to participate in the new culture help them develop sensitivity as to how speaker of the target language interact with each other. This is the last one topic, or the last one, the core of my presentation today. This is about the approaches to study of literature. The first approach is the cultural model. Cultural model here is language as a cultural artifact, and also the the study of literature texts from social, political, literary, and historical perspective. The next approach is a language model, contextualize contextualize linguistic picture. This is the systemic practice, I think, regardless of literary quality of text or reader text interaction. And also the personal growth model. That's right. I think language learning and cultural awareness through the literature, the student will listen to some so story or the kind of literary text, uh, and then they will learn through the language. They understand, they listen, they understand, and also they learn many kind of culture around the world. And then the next is personal development and focus on the learner interaction with the text and the learner feeling, idea, and opinion. That's the just now I explained. Um, Approaches to a study of literature while teaching English. This is the language-based approach. Here cover about is covered in the Richard and Roger book 2001, approaches and method in language teaching, I think. Language-based approach. This is a study of language of literary text, detailed analysis of literary text, and improved interpretation skill, knowledge of grammatical, lexical discourse category. Literary texts are regarded as great sources for language activity, a wide range of style and register. Open to multiple interpretation along with the classical discussion. Or focus on interesting topic, I think. Okay, this is one of the possible negative. Sure, not all the material or method in language teaching just have the benefit, but also they have the possible negative aspect. The possible negative aspect here of using literature, yeah, if the analysis of the text is made in a pure linguistic term, that's sure. This approach to study of literature become mechanic. That's why there are many kind, I think there are many kind of literature that we can use in the classroom, but I suggest that novel is very difficult. It's quite a long story, and also that will make our student difficult to understand. And then most of the student, based on my observation in the field, they like in learning, especially in literature, through picture or movie or with multimedia. So most of the novel that I found doesn't have any visual that can make them interest in learning, like picture and so on. So the second is literature as content. Literature is the content of the course, focus in the source area as historical and characteristic of the literary movement or period, social, political, or historical background of text, literary genre, and rhetorical device. Reading text alone with literary criticism help learn acquire English or any languages. The teacher can also ask the student to translate this text into their mother tongue, meaning immerse in literary and historical context. One of the possible negative aspects in this approach is the text is difficult linguistically. That's the same with I explained right now. A student may depend on the teacher really made interpretation. So the student just follow what the teacher or lecturer understand about the text. That's why, because the student feel bored, and also that difficult to understand the meaning of the language, and then also there are many difficulty words, and they have to need much time to open the to understand, to interpret and open the dictionary. Therefore, the background information to be supplied in this approach is important. The first is bibliographical information about the author. So this is the first strategy. If we try to force the student to understand about the novel, so the first of all, we have to introduce the student information or author. Historical or event, the character, I think we have to maybe we start in the diagram of the story. We start from the information of the story, the climax, and the resolution. I think that's the part we have to explain before to the student, so they can image before reading. They can image about the story that they will read. They will read. Philosophical, political, or religious idea in the text, places, object, or other text refer to in text. This is the kind of genre of the text, drama, poetry, fairy tale, short story, folklore, and to the no view, there are still many kind of literature, song also, the movie. Relationship between text and literary period of movement, historical, political, or social background against which the text was written. Literature for personal enrichment. Literature as a tool for encouraging students to express their feeling and verbalize their idea. It involves learner as a whole person and the material thematically organized along with non-literary texts. This is using this approach may be a problem while teaching English. Some texts may be so remote from the student own experience. So that's why I suggest that before teaching literature, we have to uh, uh, categorize or make systematically the form of literature itself, start orientation and climax. What's the climax? Orientation means that who is the name, where the story take place, and so on, and then the climax, and then after the last term is the resolution. So in addition, some students may not find the pleasure in discussing about their own feeling, emotion, and or reaction. This is the personal enrichment model and humanistic approach to language teaching by William and Burden, involving students as a whole person, engine, feeling, emotion, developing identity, encouraging self-knowledge and self-evaluation, establishing a sense of personal value in learner, and encouraging creativity. And talking about the selecting material, Lazar suggests that there are three things to be taken into consideration. They are learner cultural background, learner linguistic proficiency, and learner literary background. This is the important issue. Based on Courser, literary text should capture the student interest. Literary should be suitable for intended level, age group, interest, culture, background. That's why before we give the literature material to our students, we have to know what level they are, what age they are. So is it the material will be interest for the student, and also we have to know the student cultural background. A variety of genre and style should be taken into consideration. Text should be associated with other media. Text should fulfill student teacher literary objectives. This is the last of my presentation. So I hope that you are a little clear in how can we improve and increase student motivation in learning, especially in learning of a language or foreign language in English. English is second language or English is a foreign language. At the end of my presentation today, you should summarize the important fact once again. Literature is hoped to be able to provide rich and diverse exposure to language, improve vocabulary, syntax, and structure, develop perception and interpretation skill, develop comprehension and motivation. Here I promise you in the first presentation some kind of uh, how the kind of literature we serve, we can touch the four skill in language, especially in English. We can touch the student skill. We can touch the student reading, speaking, and listening. This is kind of just kind of a king and two servant. Through this, we just make a slide. We cut from the paragraph to the paragraph about the story like this. I just but firstly, because limited time. Okay, this is the lesson plan. In the lesson plan, we can touch the four skill: writing, speaking, listening, and reading. In writing, we can instruct the student to revise the stage of the story, and then they will learn about the grammar. In speaking, we can instruct the student to retell and interview someone outside the classroom. And then in listening, they underline the correct word in the bold, and also they fill in the missing word. That's like this: missing word. And reading. In listening, here's some instruction: listen to the story and underline the correct word in bold as you listen. Also fill in the missing word into the blank spaces. And in writing, here's some instruction. The first is about the orientation. In the beginning of the story, in here, who is the people in the story, where it takes place, when, what, and how about the story. And then also complication. Complication here describe the conflict or the dramatical point of the story. Resolution here, how about at the end of complication. And the coda here, the student we instruct the student to write down about their comment of the story that state the purpose of its feeling, in this case the moral of the story itself. In grammar, yeah, just the simple like this. We can explain first about the characteristic of the story, and then after the characteristics of the story, for example, the story contain simple past tense or simple perfect tense in tenses. And then we instruct a student to find out 5 sentences enclose the simple tense and the simple perfect tense. I think that will be very interesting. And then speaking the last is listen carefully to the story which is reading by your teacher. We read firstly, and then uh, we will point the student to or the group to retell what the story tell about based on our student understanding. And then the last instruction is interview 3 people at out the class about the story. In this case, if you are, for example, if you are Bobby in in the story, what we do? That's and after interview, make a reporting through writing. That's very nice. I think how important and how interest literature in our classroom. So we hope that our article will help you in preparing a whole in-text presentation, especially how literature enrich our classroom, especially in English language teaching. It goes without saying that our list is just a small extract from the huge work of expression and praises. As well, that there are many material things served in internet and that can easily to understand and read. The last, thank you first, at the end of my presentation. Again, thank you very much for your attention, and good morning.